for sorry, I always get these little weird pop-ups on my screen. Hello again. I'm Melanie Mirzayan, the owner of Wild Bakes and Cakes. Thanks for joining this class. Today, we are going to make chocolate-covered mini heart cakes. And with Valentine's Day being right around the corner, I figured this will be a fun class to do. Okay, they are super cute. They look kind of fancy, but honestly, they are very easy to make. So this will be a very smooth, hopefully, class for everyone. It just requires a couple different steps. If you're following along, we might need to refrigerate at some point, but for just a few seconds, just so you guys could kind of keep that in mind, okay? Let's see, during class, if you guys have any questions or any comments, please put it in the chat, and like Carrie said, she will pass those on to me. And hopefully I'll be able to get those answered during class. If you need to reach me after class, my Instagram page, Wild Bakes, is probably the best way to get a hold of me. So just send me a message there. If you want to follow, I usually post upcoming classes and fun little tips and tricks on decorating and stuff. Okay, so with that all said, if you guys are ready, let's get started. All right, let's go over all the fun things that we're going to need for this class. All right, so first we need a mold. So I definitely recommend a silicone mold for projects like this, especially when you are working with chocolate. That's the easiest way to kind of be able to pop these guys out without damaging them or breaking them. Okay, so the mold, obviously we're using the heart ones for this class, but Michaels, they carry a whole bunch of different ones. I know they have one that's like a flower shape that's super cute. So once you pretty much learn the process, you guys can use whatever mold, silicone mold that you want, and create these kind of little cute chocolate covered cakes. All right, so that's the mold. Let's talk about our lovely chocolates. We have Sweet Tooth Fairy. Michaels also carries these, and they all come in a lot of different colors, which is awesome. And if you happen to go to the store and you're like, you know what, they don't have the color that I'm looking for, you can definitely get the white chocolate and buy food coloring and then kind of get the shade of the color that you want, okay? The only thing to keep in mind when you're buying your food coloring for chocolate, you want to make sure the packaging says oil-based, all right? Because there's water-based, there's oil-based. The water-based one is pretty much for your buttercreams and for your fondant, and the oil-based is primarily for chocolate, because chocolate and water don't like each other, okay? So just keep that in mind. All right, so for this class, we're gonna do just regular chocolate, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a pink color, but obviously you guys, feel free to come up with your own color scheme and whatever you wanna design these little cakes with. All right, then I picked up these super cute, again, they're from the Sweet Tooth Fairy brand, sprinkles that I thought would be fun to use on these. But again, you guys can get creative and do your own fun little twist on this. And then of course we need our cake. So what I did for the cake after I baked it, I just pretty much crumbled it in my bowl. So it's just a crumbled cake, okay? And obviously it could be whatever flavor you want it to be. I'm doing red velvet for today's class. So with that said, you guys can also, I'm not doing it for this class, but if you want to add a buttercream, that will definitely add an extra element to your cake, which would be very delicious. So essentially, when we are layering, which I'll show you guys here in a second, when we are layering our little molds, we start layering, the cake and the buttercream. So that's also another option. And again, the flavors are obviously up to you guys, okay? So let's get started. So first thing we need to do is we need to melt our chocolate. So to melt the chocolate, and I know I talk about this in all my classes for the most part, just because of all the newbies out there. I know when I was a newbie, I had problems melting chocolate, even though this is kind of easy to work with. But just a little tip, side tip, make sure when you are melting these guys, you are setting your microwave at 50%. Okay, so don't just pop it in there and start melting away, because you're going to end up burning your chocolate. Okay, so make sure it's at 50%. Make sure you are using a glass microwavable bowl to melt your chocolate. So don't do plastic or anything like that. And every time you take it out, you give it a good mix, and then you continue at 30-second increments at the 50% power. Again, that's very important, okay? Because you don't want to burn your chocolate, because once it burns, you're pretty much done. Another little tip, was there a question?
Yeah, hey Melanie. Can you explain why you decided to go with white cake for this cake?
Um, White cake?
Yeah, or
Right.
vanilla cake?
Vanilla. Oh, you can, yeah, you could do whatever cake you want. You know, again, you can do white cake, you could do chocolate cake, you can do red velvet cake. So it definitely depends on what flavor you want to make your little cakes. So it doesn't matter. The cake is going to be hidden in the little compartment here anyways. So it's just, again, depending on preference. I hope that answered that question. Okay, let's move on. All right, so last thing on chocolate, I promise I will move on from this subject. If your chocolate's a little bit on the thicker side and you're like, I can't really work with this, especially when you're trying to dip things, it doesn't really apply too much with what we are doing today. But if you're dipping and you want to get a thinner chocolate, then the package says 2 teaspoons for the whole package of vegetable shortening. So you put the shortening with your chocolate and then you'll start melting it. Okay. However, my experience, when I use the vegetable shortening, it kind of starts clumping up my chocolate. So I switched over to um, coconut oil, and same thing, the teaspoons, sorry, can't talk today. So just a little side note on that. All right, let's do all the fun stuff. So we have our mold, we have our chocolates melted, ready to go. So one thing to keep in mind, the bottom of your mold is going to be the top of your cake, okay? Because everything's going to get flipped over. So whatever design you do on the bottom is going to be the top of your cake. So just keep that in mind, okay? So for this cake, we are going to have like some fun little drizzles in there. That's going to be, again, the top of my cake. So for that, all you have to do is get a little bit. And now keep in mind, this process does get messy. So you might want to have like a parchment paper or something that you could clean up easily. But so you have your chocolate, and then you're just going to go ahead and start kind of drizzling at the bottom, kind of getting the look and feel that you're looking for. Okay, you can do swirls, you can do zigzags, you could do whatever you want. You can even do multiple colors. I'm just using pink. Okay, so here, let me do it one more time. So all you're doing is you're just kind of drizzling your pattern right on at the bottom. All right. So let me see if you guys could see that. My lighting is not the best, but there you go. So once you decide that this is the pattern you're going to go with, these are the colors you're going to use, you're going to have to let the chocolate set for a little bit. So pop this in the freezer or in the fridge, and literally for just like few seconds, because this chocolate sets pretty quickly. So you want to make sure your chocolate kind of on the hard side before you continue to the next step. Okay, because you want to make sure your pattern comes out really nice once you're done prepping your cake. Okay, so see, I'm touching it and it's still kind of wet. So again, you would pop it in the fridge, and then once it sets, literally 20 seconds, bring it out and then continue. All right, So for me, I'm just going to go ahead and continue, but then I have my other steps, which I will show you guys throughout the class. All right, so now, once our chocolate is set, we are going to cover the inside of our mold. All right, and all you have to do is pour some of your base color. So I'm just going with like regular chocolate. You could do obviously different colors. All right, so I'm just gonna put a good chunk of it in there. All right, and you could do this a couple different ways. You can kind of start to move around your chocolate in the mold, just like that, just to kind of start covering the walls. All right, you can kind of play around with it. The easiest way is just to use your spoon or spatula and start kind of painting the walls. All right, and you want to make sure you cover the entire wall all the way to the tip. And even if it comes outside of your little area, that's okay too. All right, so once it's all nicely covered, then you want to swoosh it around again. Okay. And again, the goal is to get the entire inside covered. All right. So once you have it nicely covered, then you dump this chocolate out. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily dump it back into the same bowl, just because if you have other colors mixed in there, you want to get this batch dirty. All right. So you would just kind of dump that out, put the mold back in the fridge for a few more seconds. Okay. Bring it back out and do the same process over again. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. And the goal is to make sure that the wall and the bottom of your mold has a thick enough layer to hold your cake. So once you're done and you're popping your cake out, the chocolate's not falling apart, it's not breaking. So that's kind of the goal. At the same time, you don't want to have like ton of chocolate in there that you have no room for your cake. So you don't want to do that either. Okay. So as long as, you could tell, you're like, oh, that kind of looks thin, or I'm kind of seeing my mold through the walls or through the chocolate, then you don't have enough. So you have to kind of do the process over again. Okay. So again, you would do one layer, and you will repeat the same process, the same steps after you put it in the fridge. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Again, I'm gonna use my spoon just because that's easier for me. This works for me. And I'm sure, once you guys start to do this often, you will find your own little tips and tricks that works better for you. I've seen some people actually use like little brushes and they start brushing their molds, which I thought it was kind of interesting. I've never tried it. I've always done it this way, or just kind of, smushing the chocolate around, just like that. All right. So once you have your chocolate nicely set, your walls are evenly covered, they're thick enough, and you feel confident that you were in a good place, then we're going to move on to the next step, which is filling our little mold. All right. So I already went ahead and popped mine in the fridge, and I have this ready to go. Okay, my chocolate is nicely set, and I'm going to continue to the next step. So here is where you can start adding your cake into your little mold. All right. And this is also where you can add your buttercream. And again, the cake doesn't matter. It's just preference, right? So just kind of fill it up just enough. And then since the cake is kind of fluffy, you want to start using, I use my fingers, or you can also use your, I'm assuming, spoon. But the goal is to kind of firmly push the cake down so you have a nice solid base, especially if you're going to add your buttercream. So the steps would be, I filled my cake quarter way or halfway, right? And then you're going to put in just a little bit of buttercream because again, these cakes are not that big, right? So you don't want to fill it all the way up. And you want to make sure your top layer is also cake, not buttercream. All right. So let's see if I can show you guys. I have my cake firmly placed. So I don't have buttercream, so I'm gonna continue filling it with the rest of my cake. All right, and you don't want to go all the way up to the top. You want to leave just a little bit of room for your chocolate, but you also don't want to not fill it enough where the entire cake becomes, or entire, yeah, I guess cake becomes mainly chocolate either, you know? All right, so just kind of put that in there. There you go. I feel like I'm in a good place with this for our top coat. Any questions, comments on what's going on right now?
Not so far, but if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the chat for us.
Yes. All right. So now we have our cake in there. Now we need to cover our hearts. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour in, I should say, more chocolate on top. You don't want to put too much. And the goal is to get the top covered evenly. All right, so with your spoon, just kind of gently start moving the chocolate around. And the goal is to make sure you are sealing all the edges. Okay, everything has to be covered. And it's okay if you go outside of the line. Because at the end, once we flip it over, we can work with that. We can fix it. We can clean it up. All right. So I feel like I'm in a good place. Another little tip that you could do with chocolate to get a smoother edge, you start tapping it. So just keep tapping it and the chocolate will start to spread and it'll smooth itself out. All right. Okay. So we have our chocolate set. Now we need to either put this back in the fridge for a quicker time. Let's just say, you want to do this real quickly. You can pop this back in the fridge for like a minute and the chocolate will set. And then you can come back and move on to the next step. Okay. But if you're making like a whole bunch of these, I would do them in like an assembly line, like in stages, right? So you're pouring in all the chocolate first, you're cooling it, bringing it out, filling it with your cake, topping it with your chocolate, letting it sit for a minute, and then back at it. All right.
We do have one question for you, Melanie.
Yes.
Can you combine the buttercream and cake crumb together like cake pops to
Oh yeah,
fill?
absolutely. Yes. And I would actually recommend that instead of layering it, just because it'll give you a smoother, kind of like a Play-Doh texture that you could mold it in there a lot easier. So yeah, absolutely. You could do that too, especially if your cake comes out kind of on the dry side, where when you start mushing it in there, you're like, yeah, it's still kind of like flaky and I'm afraid it's going to mix with my chocolate. Then add a little bit of buttercream with your cake mix, right? And then you can form it in there. Great question. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So now I already went ahead and made one just because of timing in class. So once your chocolate is set, now it's time to pop it out of the mold. All right, this is where you get to see, whether your walls were thick enough and it's going to hold the cake or is it going to fall apart. So I'm hoping mine is going to behave for the class. All right, so the key is be very gentle. Okay, don't just start ripping things and try to pull it out. Okay, that's why the silicone mold comes in handy, because it allows you to be gentle. So just kind of gently start pulling it off, kind of peeling it off, I should say. All right, just like that, if you guys could see it. And then at some point you can just go ahead and grab it and pull it out. But again, a very slow process because you don't want to ruin your work of art. And if a side is sticking, again, be very gentle. All right. And there is my heart. Okay, I'm gonna move this aside. Get this cleaned up a little bit. All right, so now we have our cake. And do you see how the lines that we did in the beginning, now it's top of our cake. And this is where you guys can, start to have fun with. You can put some sprinkles in there. You can do different colors for your lines, different designs, and make them look super cute. All right, so now, as you can see, we have some leftover parts, right? Because it didn't come out perfect and we want it to be perfect. And it's super easy. So you can use a knife and you can start kind of cutting the side, okay? If you warm up the tip of your knife, it'll be a smoother process. Just a little side tip there too. And you don't want to go all the way, start like cutting it all the way. You're just trying to kind of flake off what's hanging loose because you don't want to damage your cake either.
Melanie, could you maybe demonstrate what it would be like to combine the buttercream and cake crumbs together?
Unfortunately, I don't have buttercream, but it's super easy. So what you would do here, we'll put this aside for one quick second. So the process would be the same, right? Once you take out your cake here, I'll show you guys my cake and how I kind of did it for all the newbies. So I baked my cake, right? Just a regular cake. And I took, obviously I just took a chunk for the class, but I'm assuming if you're doing it, you're going to utilize your entire cake. So what you would do is you just put the cake in a bowl, right? And you can even use your hands just to crumble it up into little crumblies like this. It's a fun process. I actually love doing that. So once you get it all kind of flaky, like this, then what you would do is, and you have your buttercream already made, right? And you would start with 2 tablespoons of your buttercream. So you would put the buttercream in here and you would start mixing it and make sure it's nicely incorporated. And then you're going to test it. If it's too wet, then you put too much. That's why you want to start with, 1 or 2 tablespoons and then kind of go from there. So you would put your buttercream, give it a good mix. And what I normally do just to kind of gauge the consistency of my cake, especially when I'm making cake pops, I use my hands. So I will start smushing it like this just to see what I'm getting. If it's still dry and it's crumbly, then I will add a little bit more buttercream. If it's sticking and it's kind of like a Play-Doh texture, then you're in a good place. And again, you don't want it to end up being like sticky and kind of juicy because you can't really work with that and it doesn't come out right. Okay. So I hope that kind of helped.
Yeah, and then can they use edible glitter like the spray on? Would that be something that they could do?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is, I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting it in the mold per se when you're starting to decorate, kind of like what we did with the pink lines design, because sometimes the chocolate it'll get absorbed into the chocolate and it might not come out as you would expect it to come out. So I would save all those fun, fancy decorations for afterwards, kind of like what we're going to do right now. Okay. You can experiment, you can give it a try for sure and just see what kind of look and feel you're going to get and then gauge it from that point. All right. So let me clean up this area. Okay, so now we have our cake ready to go. And this is where you guys can get super creative. And just to, again, you want to make sure your cake is nicely sealed and you don't see any cake. All right, because once it's nicely sealed, it could actually last a lot longer than if you have exposed cake, because then it's like air and bacteria and all of that. Okay, so best option would be nicely sealed. All right, okay, so now for the way I'm gonna decorate my cake, and again, you guys feel free to do whatever you want. I'm gonna cover the half of my heart with sprinkles. All right, and obviously I can't just put sprinkles right on top because it will not stick. So you need some of your chocolate to kind of like represent glue. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit and I'm gonna rub some on one side of my cake. I don't want to put too much. I just want to put enough where, again, it creates kind of a glue-like thing right over here. Okay, you could drizzle chocolate on top of it to kind of do the same thing. It's just whatever works for you. All right, so once it's there, you don't want it to set, right? Because then nothing will stick. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my sprinkles right on top. However you want to decorate it, just kind of with your finger, help it kind of set in place. Okay, I'm going to use some of these guys. They're super fun. And again, if it's not sticking, you need more, then you just kind of add more chocolate, your little glue. Just remember the wet chocolate's your glue.
Melanie, would you recommend using the chocolate to fix like any cracks or like mistakes in the cake?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for example, and that's why I love working with chocolate, because you could kind of hide your imperfections, which is nice. So let's say, for example, just want to make sure these guys are kind of stuck on there. For example, you ended up missing a spot right there, right on the edge, and you weren't able to seal it properly. And all you have to do is literally with your finger, just kind of get a little bit of chocolate. Obviously, you want to make sure it's the same color chocolate, right? And you can rub over the crack and make it nice and smooth, and it will kind of create that seal that you were looking for. Okay, and remember, heat is also your friend when it comes to chocolate. Like I said, you can heat up the top of your knife. You don't want it to be like burning hot, but just enough, just a little bit. You can put it under a hot water, but then make sure obviously you wipe the water off, and you can use that to kind of smooth over your chocolate. Okay, you can even use your finger, create friction. So you can use your finger creating friction. So just kind of rubbing it, it will make it nice and smooth. Okay, just like that. And I wish you guys could see it better, but so again, you're using friction to create heat to smooth out your chocolate. If it's a bigger gap, obviously you can use what chocolate you have, cover it up, the same process, or you can use a knife or a spatula, get it nice, not nice and hot, but hot enough, and smooth over it. So that's how you can kind of get away from fixing your mistakes. All right. Any other questions on that?
Not so far.
Okay. So there we have it. This is our fun little cake. I know my lighting is terrible today. I apologize for that. But that's, how I wanted to decorate my cake. You guys obviously, you saw the process. So if you want to add just to back up a little bit, this is where you would use your glitters, your edible glitters. You can spray it on there. I know Michael's carries different shades of those now that I love using. They're so easy to use, or you can get them in a powder form and you can use a brush just to kind of brush it on there. So yeah, you can be very, very creative with these things, and they're ready to be served. As far as storage, so if you have them nicely covered, like I said, cake's not showing, nicely sealed, these guys will be fine for about, I want to say, a week. Maybe that might be pushing it, just because the cake inside, you don't want a week old cake to serve people or for you to eat it. So I would say maybe 3 to 4 days you should be fine. um as far as like serving it, the chocolate itself is not going to go bad. You could leave it on the countertop. You can put it in the fridge, but make sure you guys are storing them properly. So you're putting them in an airtight container before you put it in the fridge. Okay, even on the countertop, you want to make sure you're protecting your chocolate. So again, it doesn't necessarily need to be refrigerated because it's nicely sealed. However, you don't want it to go past a couple days on the counter. If you put it in the fridge, 3 to 4 days, I would say would be the freshest to use.
Melanie, do you think that you can show us like what it looks like on the inside? Like maybe if you could cut one open?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's have some fun. Let me get some of these things out of the way. All right. And these are super fun. So to cut them, obviously you can cut them any way you want, but just to see what it looks like on the inside, I'm just going to go straight in the middle. All right. Gonna cut it down. All right. We have a broken heart. And there we have it. Let's see, make sure you guys could, sorry, again, my lighting is terrible, but see, we have a nice covered, nicely thick walls. They're not too thick, and we still have the cake inside. All right. There you go. And they can, you can pull these apart and eat them. You could do whatever you want, but they're super fun and tasty. Okay, I hope that was, let me see if these guys set. See, I didn't even have to put these in the fridge. They're already set on their own. So this chocolate's pretty good. Again, you just need to either wait it out, or pop it in the fridge. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this out too, since it's ready to go. Again, you just want to peel it gently. All right. And then kind of help it to come out just like that. There we go. So we have our second heart. And again, see how we have all the extras kind of popping on the side, and we can utilize the same technique with our knife and gently cut those out of the way. All right. And again, if it's not smooth enough, you can use your finger to create friction and make it smooth. All right. And I can maybe cut this one too, if you guys want, just to see. But there you go. And you guys can decorate the top however you like. All right. I think that's pretty much it as far as how to assemble the cake, how to get it out of the mold, how to store them. And again, cutting it and serving it, it's super easy. So you don't have to, there's no right or wrong way of doing that. All right. Any last minute questions or comments? If not,
I don't think so.
no? Okay. All right, guys. Well, this was a fun class. I hope you guys enjoyed the class and learned something new. Again, if you have any comments or questions after class, you can reach me on my Instagram page, Wild Bakes. You could just send me a message there. I would love to see what you guys came up with. So please feel free to share them with me. You can email them to me. You can tag me, Wild Bakes, or make it with Michael's And just kind of, yeah, share your work and be proud of what you come up with. And I hope this was a fun class for you guys too. All right. Have a good weekend and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.